here with Mr. Wayne Barboza, Vice President of Parting Ways. Just want to dip right into it and just ask you, in your own words, what is the Parting Ways Project?
Well, the Parting Ways Project is actually a recovery of a history that was lost for several hundred years. We're talking about the Revolutionary War and the founding of the country back in the days of the Pilgrims and the days of George Washington. It seems that over the years we have lost the history of 10% of the soldiers that actually fought in the war, and they were Africans. And I believe that deliberate indifference was because they were black. So what Parting Ways is to step away from what was a myth and to cover what was a fact. And the facts are coming out that we played a major role in the founding of this country. Also, it ties into the African slave trade and the immigration of other Africans as freemen too as well. So what Parting Ways has done over 30 some odd years that it started is really take another look at African American history and the founding of this country.
That sounds good. So let's clarify a few things, because for those who don't know, what we're talking about is the Revolutionary War, not the Civil War. And the Parting Ways Project was located on the line of Kingston and Plymouth, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Can you go into a little bit of depth as far as specifically who and what other people that are represented there?
Okay, we'll go to the history as far as I got into it about 13 years ago. But my friend Eddie Johnson, he was involved in the initial recovery. That was back in the 70s. A lot of people were involved. Dick Gregory, the leadership. There was a family out there, the Andrades, and they were immigrants, one of the oldest families out in Plymouth. And what the problem was, after they discovered that there was actually an African settlement there, way back, during the times of the Pilgrims, quite frankly. It was a Pilgrim township. All that was founded by the forefathers. There is a big difference between the forefathers who landed here and the founding fathers who fought for the land. All right? Those who fought for the land, they fought with George Washington. This is the 1700s. But the history goes deeper than that. It goes back to the original landing and settling here. Because when they arrived here, the only people that were here were the originals, the Aboriginals, Natives, Wampanoags, Arawaks, Pequots, and everything. These were the Indians that were here. But history neglects to tell you that they were black. And they neglect to tell you that there were no laws of ownership of land and all that there. So to go into that phase of the history contradicts and flies in the face of what we're taught in school. So Parting Ways is to recover and re-educate our people, because we have a history that needs to be revisited for more than just historical reasons, but for cultural and heritage reasons. Because the heritage indicates that we own a lot of land. We were given a lot of land. We settled a lot of land. And through the different race issues that were rolling around during it, we lost. So the site, the village, the town, just turned back into the woods, and they try to keep it quiet until Eddie and his family come along, and they kept spreading the story. And there was quite a few people back in the 70s that tried to, but they were leaders that didn't, they weren't big leaders yet. They weren't known internationally or nationally. And it was easy for a more powerful group to come along and pull them away from the mission of bringing this history to the classroom. So when I came along in 2000, I never heard of anything such as 5%, 10% of the soldiers being black. It was easy for a more powerful group to come along and pull them away from the mission of bringing this history to the classroom. So when I came along in 2000, I never heard of anything such as 5%, 10% of the soldiers being black. I thought there was like 2 or 3. All right. Right. And if you go look into the history books, there were none. There was nothing available. And when you talk to the universities and the teachers and professors, they didn't know nothing either. So I stopped the fatherhood program that I had going, and we went into this Parting Ways. And Parting Ways right now is about to build a museum. And we have the support of Sons of the American Revolution and a lot of established organizations per se. But because of their rules and their regulations and what they believe in, they haven't really given any financial support, or it's like that. Everything's compartmentalized. And also, you have to realize that if the history was really brought out, that they'd have to change some of their history, because it ain't exactly all that hero stuff.
No, it's perfect. Let's tie in, because it's interesting. We spoke before, but I want you to tie in the Cape Verdean culture with the New Guinea Project and the Parting Ways, because that's a big piece that my age group and younger is a major part of our history, and it's very interesting.
All right, here's the best way to do it. We're told that Christopher Columbus discovered America, but the actual fact is he never stepped foot in North America. He actually went directly to the Caribbean area, Haiti, Puerto Rico, and so forth, Dominican Republic. And they don't tell you how he got there. They say he wandered trying to find the East. But in reality, he had maps. And these maps come from a time that the church had suppressed ancient civilizations, that the church had suppressed because these civilizations were black or Jewish. And the Greek and Roman Empire wasn't about to say, blacks are our father. You know what I mean? We got civilization from them. So they had to eliminate this history, get rid of all the art, all the facts, all the relics and so forth, over hundreds of years of a crusade. And this is where you get your knights and your Freemasons and your Rosicrucians and all these secret societies and the Vatican, all this is involved. Because we're going back to a time when Spain, for 800 years, was the center of a civilization. And following that time, during that time, Jews and Muslims were like this. The Jews claimed that it was their highest point in civilization when the Moors ruled off most of Europe. In fact, they ruled all of it. But the northern part, Norwegian, the Russian, and so forth, etc., these were white Jews. They weren't born. The Jews that we have in Israel are not blood to Israel. They're amalgamated. They come from Russia. These are converted Hebrews. And these are the people that are in Palestine and Israel now. Black people, due to the racism of English, Irish, Scottish, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed races, who felt threatened by white annihilation because black children cannot come from 2 white parents, so they automatically had to be brown or another color. Well, when the Moors conquered Europe, the first thing they do is plant their seed. They marry into the family that ruled, and there was never like crime. These people lived in polished stone palaces, not castles and fires roaring, and they weren't killers. You could actually, the kids went to school free. The coinage wasn't gold and green. It was books. You were considered wealthy by the amount of books and scrolls and wisdom you had. And anybody that traveled through there was guaranteed safety. If they had no food or a place to stay, they were welcomed in for 800 years in Spain alone. Now, Cape Verde was settled by the Spanish. They say the Portuguese, but if you go back to before Columbus, Portugal was Spanish. All right? And we more or less was an annex of this Portugal. In the Portuguese Empire were the Maritimes. So they used the skills of the Moors, who were the word Moors comes from navigator. And the word actually was blackamoor. All right? And almost all your royalty, their bloodlines will come back to the Moors, all the Hebrew. So what we saw was a Greek and Roman Empire that replaced the true history, and then came over here and built a new Jerusalem at the cost of killing off all the shamans and the dark-skinned natives and wiping out anything that would bring up the past. So basically, Cabo Verde were the hybrids of that whole action. These were the children that were born on these islands from Africa. And they were Moors and Jews. They were not slaves. All right? Of course, there could have been a few, because, you know, where sex comes in, there could have been a few. But most of Cape Verdeans' culture never were slaves. They were Jewish, or they were Hebrew. I mean, not Hebrew, Muslim, Islam. And that, it stands today. Anybody can go check out the history. Anytime they want to Google this stuff. It's not fake, it's not theory, it's not conspiracy. Up until 1492, even the Rock of Gibraltar is named after a black man. So when you come to Plymouth, there was, back when this was first discovered, when in Brown University, Dr. Dietz was a world-renowned archaeologist, when they dug up the artifacts, they found vases similar to West African vases, and you know, like the Dead Sea Scroll. Of course, the history about that was from a white perspective, and they never included because they didn't know, unless they belonged to a secret order or some kind of religious order that kept these right, and that's not something you want to tell if it's a fraud. So this is how Cape Verde fits it. We're the children of that whole business.
Definitely rewriting history here. Another question I had is this parting ways site. You know, we're going to use this as a point to, I don't know if you want to say marry the Africans back to the heritage, but to at least use it as a stepping stone to get this information out.
Right. Here's what we did. The Department of Interior is in charge of the land. I believe originally, we found out later, that there was over 1,060 acres. But what was left when I came along was like 26, 28 acres. We got this town of Plymouth to give that land back. For a period of time, we owned deed. And that had happened before in the 60s, but they failed. They dropped it. And for 30 years, it was dropped. It converted from an archaeological dig site back into woods again, where nobody could see it. So we put up a sign, we had them put a road there to a parking lot, and we basically, for the past 13 years, without any funding, without any support from anybody, financially or organization-wise. But because the bloodlines have to keep their heritage, the Sons of the American Revolution had to authorize and confirm that these brothers that were buried there were veterans from the Revolutionary War. And up until that time, there were no black members. The last member that was allowed into the Society for the Sons of the American Revolution was W.E. Du Bois. And they threw him out. We had to get him reinstated. Personally, I had to go to Washington, D.C. to get the Department of Interior to put Cape Verde in the book, because there was no mention of Cape Verde. Even the maps in the book had no islands, no word of Cape Verde. So I thought that was peculiar. And the more I did the research, the more I found out why. And it's all about real estate.